One of the hardest things about learning Spanish is understanding and using slang. When you're surrounded by friends, there's a good chance that some crude or inappropriate language might come into play. As your Spanish teacher, I'm not going to go over those words and phrases with you. You'll have to learn some other time with some other person. But what I am going to teach you today are a few words and phrases that you can use to sound cool without sounding crude or vulgar.
In this video, we're going to share some common slang expressions that can be used almost anywhere, and then we'll share a few that are specific to different countries or regions.
Let's start with greetings. When you run into one of your buddies, it's acceptable to say Hola, ¿cómo estás? However, you might prefer a more relaxed greeting, something along the lines of What's up? Here are some things you could say.
Hey, chao.
¿Qué pasó?
¿Qué dices, gordo?
¿Qué dices, feo?
¿Qué onda? ¿Qué praise?
Now you might be thinking, some of those sounded kind of rude. While most of us would never refer to our friends as ugly or fat, it's pretty common amongst Spanish speakers and people rarely take offense to these nicknames. When you're ready to say goodbye to your friends, instead of adios, maybe you could try one of these phrases.
Ciao. Hasta luego.
Nos vemos. Hasta la próxima.
Now let's say you need to get someone's attention or you want to point something out to him or her. Here are some phrases you might want to use.
Oye, mira.
Chécale.
When you're hanging out with friends, it's perfectly acceptable to call them mis amigos. But if you want to be more specific, here are some other phrases you might use.
Compa.
Compadre.
Amigote.
Amigovio.
Chamaco.
When a guy sees a good-looking girl, he might say she's a...
Mamacita.
And likewise, she might refer to him as...
Mamacita.
When your buddy walks in the room and you're excited to see him, you might yell.
Bon!
And if your buddy is a gangster, you might call him a...
Cholo.
If you want to say something along the lines of, no way, or are you kidding me? You could say...
No manches.
No mames.
Now the first of these two phrases, no manches, literally means don't stain, and it's appropriate to use around all people. If you want to say the phrase no mames, though, that's not quite as appropriate. It's better to use it around friends because it's kind of like saying don't suck. If someone needs to hurry up or get moving, you can tell them to...
Andale.
If you want to say that something is cool, you've probably heard the phrase chévere, which is common in some Spanish-speaking countries. Here are some other phrases you can use that mean cool.
Cheeto.
Orale. Simón. Suave.
Compadre. Mate.
For those of you that like to take notes or maybe didn't quite understand some of those words or phrases, I'm going to review them here for you quickly. Alright, in the greetings and goodbyes section of the video, we learned these phrases for what's up. ¿Qué tal? ¿Qué pasó? ¿Qué dices, gordo? ¿Qué dices, feo? ¿Qué onda? ¿Qué pues? We also learned some different ways to say see you later. Ciao. Hasta luego. Nos vemos. Hasta la próxima. Next, we learned how to get someone's attention. Oye. Mira. Chéquele. Then we learned some friendly nicknames that you could use when you're hanging out with a group of friends. Compa, compadre, amigote, amigovio, chamaco, chavo, chavón, cholo. Some maybe not so friendly names that you could use when you're hanging out with a group of friends, maybe if you're talking about someone else, or if you're talking to your friend but in a joking manner, you might use some of these words. Un tipo cualquiera, niñato, plástico, mandilón. Then we learned how to talk about people who we are attracted to. Women, when you're wanting to describe a man that's good looking, you could call him papacito, or maybe chulo. Or if he's very, very attractive, then instead of just saying guapo, you might say, él es guapísimo. Now, men, when you want to talk about attractive women, here are some of the phrases you can use. Mamacita, chula, buenota. Next, we learned some phrases that you might use in conversation to express that something is cool or you're really into it. We learned chévere, chido, órale, Simón, suave, and que padre. When you're around funny people, you can call them chistoso or gracioso. The jokes themselves are called chistes or bromas. If someone's being ridiculous, you might say, no seas payaso, which literally means, don't be a clown. The legal drinking age in most Spanish-speaking countries is 18. Since many of you are close to that age and drinking tends to be a big component of the Hispanic culture, here are some drinking or party phrases that are good to know. When you're at a party or an event, there's oftentimes a brindis, which is a toast. As everyone raises their glasses for a toast, the most common words for cheers would be salud. A common tradition for toasts is to raise your glass, lower your glass, put your glass in the center, and then take a drink, and state what you're doing it as you do it. So you would say arriba, abajo, al centro y al dentro. Most of you know the common word for beer is cerveza. However, many regions have their own words that they use instead. In Latin America, many people might refer to their beer as a chela, which is actually short for chelada, which is like a tomato beer. If you were to visit Chile or Argentina, you might hear them call their beer birra, which, as you might have guessed, comes from the English word beer. For those that aren't into beer and prefer a shot of alcohol, shots are usually called tragos, coming from the Spanish word for swallow. For the second part of this video, I'm going to share some more regional slang, meaning some of the words and phrases are used in certain countries but not others. So be careful who you use these around so people don't look at you like you're nuts. In Argentina, cool people are referred to as piola. Pibe is a boy, and chabón is a guy or a dude. If you need to take a taxi, you might call it a tacho. If you were in Chile, you might say ¿Qué hubo? For what's up. You might yell ojo or pilas to tell someone to be careful. If something or someone is being ridiculous or uncool, you might use the phrase mañé. If you want to order a coffee, you might simply say tinto instead of café. And if you hear someone say tombo, they're talking about a cop. In Cuba, a cute or pretty person can be called a mono, which literally means monkey. If you are insanely in love with said monkey, cutie, you would say estoy mate. If someone tells you to give them all of your chavos, they're robbing you, because chavos means money. In Guatemala, a dude is a cerote, while an idiot may be called a pisado. Something cool would be cálida. If you see something cálida, you might yell out, ¡Qué chilero! In Mexico, a güey is a dude. Preppy and sometimes spoiled guys and gals are referred to as fresa, which you know as the word for strawberry. When someone says mande, they're not asking you to send them something or order them something. They're just saying, what did you say? If you're white and you get called a güera or a gringo, don't be offended. These are pretty common and aren't meant to be rude. When you're in Spain, the dialect is a little more formal and sophisticated than many other countries. Instead of the incorrect ¿Qué pasó? That you hear in most Latin American countries, the Spanish will use the grammatically correct ¿Qué pasa? For what's happening in the present tense. The phrase ni de coña is used to express surprise or shock, so it's like saying no way. And a delinquent or a petty thief might be called a kinky. Close friends in Spain might refer to each other as tío or tía, even though they're no way related to each other. So you know tío and tía as uncle and aunt, but in Spain it's more like, hey dude. A visit with someone from Peru might start out with the phrase, ¿Qué cuentas?, which you would probably think means, what do you count? In this case, it just means, what's up? When someone is griping about la chamba, they're talking about work. Bros or dudes might be called patas, and something that is considered to be true is called la firme. In Venezuela, a ratón is not a mouse, but rather a hangover, and a lata is not a can, but rather a French kiss. If someone says you have a caucho, they're referring to your fat belly. But if they say candela, they think you're awesome. I hope you've enjoyed this brief glimpse into the world of Spanish slang. As I mentioned before, a lot of slang terms can be somewhat vulgar and will not be included in our curriculum, but if you want to know more, you can find quite a few different books and dictionaries online or at your local bookstore that are a little more all-inclusive and might help you articulate exactly what it is that you're trying to say just a little bit better. Okay, hasta la próxima!